Welcome to episode 2 of our NHL prediction series, where I have a special guest. We're taking a look ahead at the 2021 NHL season and making some prediction regarding some NHL player point totals. Today's guest is Tyler from WardyNHL, and that's coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we have episode 2 for our NHL prediction series, where I have a guest on to take a look at some things we're going to see for the 2021 NHL season. Like the last video, we're going to be making some predictions on who will get more points amongst these NHL players that we're going to be discussing here today. And of course, today we have Tyler from WardyNHL on as a special guest. Of course, he's a pretty big Rangers fan, so I try to gear some of our questions to have at least some Ranger-specific players involved in today's selection. The first group of players we're making predictions on is a couple of young superstars for the New York Rangers. We have the 2020 first overall draft pick, Alexis Lafreniere, and of course last year's 2019 second overall pick, Kappo Kakko. Who will get more points?
Hey Mike, thanks again for having me on your channel. I've thoroughly enjoyed the collabs that we have done thus far, both on my channel a couple months ago and most recently on yours, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this video. But now we have two players that I feel I know pretty well, and that is Kappo Kakko, right winger for the New York Rangers, and left winger for the New York Rangers now, former first overall pick in 2020, the guy on the wall behind me, and Alexis Lafreniere. Who's going to have more points in the 2021 season, which is probably going to be a shortened 56-game season, it would seem at this point in time. I have to give the upper edge to Alexis Lafreniere for a couple reasons. One, the most notable is Lafreniere as a prospect. How does he round up versus a guy like Kappo Kakko? If they're both in the same draft class, it would not easily, but to an extent, be a guy like Alexis Lafreniere over Kappo Kakko. Alexis was the most coveted guy in the draft for years now, as we know, in this draft class, and was steadily the front runner to go first overall, really without much debate, with a draft class that was far deeper with so much offensive talent versus draft classes in years prior, including the 2019 draft that was headlined by Hughes and Kakko. So that is a big factor in itself, but also I think Lafreniere is just going to have a very smooth transition to the NHL versus Kappo, who last season, I'm going to give him a huge benefit of the doubt here. He only had 23 points in 66 games, including 10 goals and 13 assists, but take into account with Kappo, at least, he did play really a year straight of hockey as a teenager, no less, that has celiac disease and also is a diabetic, so some things might be a little bit more of an uphill climb than the average person as an athlete. So he has all those factors as it is. He's never played this kind of workload in his life, bouncing between playing in Finland, where he was coming out of for the draft, playing in junior championships for Finland, being in tournaments, also being part of Traverse City, which was the Rangers rookie tournament, having training camp, preseason, everything he had to do last year, and also play a roughly full season for the Rangers outside of things getting cut short. So he had a long year, to say the least, and that was a huge issue for him and his initial development. But when he came back from the qualifying round, having those months off, he, in my mind, looked like the best forward for the Rangers in that 3-game sweep with the Carolina Hurricanes. But no less, I still believe Alexis Lafreniere is going to have a better year, even with Kappo expected to have quite the bounce back in his sophomore year, because Lafreniere, he's really going to push to be in that top 6. If not, he will definitely start on that third line at least, and he's really going to do everything he possibly can to command to have a significant impact on this roster from day one in training camp. There's just so many aspects of his game. I truly believe he's more NHL ready. He just came off of a 112-point season in 52 games played, including 35 goals and 77 assists in his final year in juniors. And I know it's juniors, it's not nearly the same as the NHL, but there's a lot of reasons to expect Lafreniere to take that next step without question in the NHL with the Rangers. And depending on how they implement him, he could find himself with more opportunities, possibly both on the power play and 5-on-5, depending on how they utilize things. Kappo does have the upper hand. He could very well be a favorite to be on that second line right wing with Jesper Fast hitting free agency and going to the Hurricanes now. So there is that hole for Kappo to possibly fill sooner than later. But even in a situation where Lafreniere is starting out on the third line and Kappo's on the second, I think Lafreniere is going to thrive and really make quite the impact and be one of, if not the Calder favorite for sure in the 2021 season. Both guys I think are going to have some strong years. I think Kakko is really going to bounce back, having all this time rested off. But rest assured, I'm still going to go with a guy like Alexis Lafreniere.
I do tend to agree with Tyler's analysis here. I do think Lafreniere as well will get the bigger point totals for the upcoming season. Again, not to take anything away from Kakko, and I think we will see some pretty big improvements. course, as a rookie, everything he went through last year doesn't mean that, he's not going to be a big superstar just because he didn't really light up the league last year. I expect to see some good growth and some good, point improvements for the coming year, even though it's a shortened season. Even with 56 games, I could see a scenario unfold where he actually gets more points than he did last year, possibly playing more games now. But Lafreniere's ceiling is definitely higher. As Tyler mentioned, if you would have had these two guys in the same draft class, Lafreniere still would have been the top selection. So even though I do think they both have a bright future in the Big Apple, I think Alexis Lafreniere will come out of the gates much faster and a higher level than Kakko will, and will certainly outperform him for the upcoming season. And I do fully suspect Lafreniere very well could be the favorite or one of the top contenders for this year's Calder Trophy. Now, next up, we're taking a look at a couple of Hart Trophy finalists from last year. We have Rangers forward Artemi Panarin and Colorado Avalanche center Nathan MacKinnon.
Now we have another two players I know pretty well, and that is another left winger for the New York Rangers, but this time in their star in Artemi Panarin. And then you also have centerman, the star for the Colorado Avalanche, and Nathan MacKinnon. Two guys that were Hart Trophy finalists this past year, ultimately losing that to Leon Draisaitl, but no less had amazing seasons, and Panarin had a career-high season racking up 95 points in just 69 games played, including 32 goals and 63 assists. And then you had Nathan MacKinnon, who had 93 points, so 2 points shy in 69 games, including 35 goals and 58 assists. And the year prior, those past 2 years, MacKinnon had a career-high season in which he racked up 99 points, and the year before that, a couple years ago, he had 97 points. So MacKinnon has been on a more consistent track when it comes to point production, and is far younger than Panarin too, almost around, if not around 5 years already in their age difference, and that's just impressive enough. MacKinnon is so underrated playing in Colorado, and they're finally shaping out to be an amazing team, not just for the short term, but long-term future. So with this shortened season coming up, as we know, I have to give the upper hand to Nathan MacKinnon, and here's why. And as much as I love Artemi Panarin, you guys know this, anyone that follows me, you know my love for the Rangers and Artemi Panarin, but the issue that I currently have with Panarin and his likelihood of overcoming Nathan MacKinnon next season, like I said, it really is a coin flip between these two guys, like most of these guys that we will be discussing in today's video. But in particular, Panarin might be moved around in this lineup. He could very well be on the right wing, his off wing at times during the season, trying to gel Lafreniere in that top six, should he perform well enough where they simply need to put him in. There's no way he can get anything less than, say, top 6 minutes. Time will tell, but Panarin could be utilized in ways that aren't necessarily things that he's as accustomed to, whether that's on the right wing during the special teams or on 5-on-5 on that line with Stromer more than likely. So if that is the case, that could very well just slightly decrease his point production, and also take into account that normally when a player has a career high season, it is kind of hard to live up to it. And now with this 56 game season, he isn't going to be getting 95 points, as we know, but I think MacKinnon is going to overpower Panarin in the end, not by a lot, especially given the great offense that the Rangers currently have, but between Colorado being a powerhouse as it is, MacKinnon really being the face of the franchise, he's their unsung captain outside of Gabriel Landeskog, so he's just amazing all-around player. He's truly so underrated, still baffles me that he doesn't get enough love that he rightfully deserves, in my opinion, but I think MacKinnon is going to have another phenomenal year and could very well lead the league in point production at the end of the 2021 season. So time will tell. I love both players. They're both truly fantastic, but if I had to pick between the two, I'm giving the edge to MacKinnon just because of the amount of ice time he's going to get on a night-to-night basis, and it's pretty solidified what his role is with the club, versus with Panarin. He could be juggled around on his off wing at sometimes, given a guy like Lafreniere trying to crack that top six, for instance, should he perform that well either in training camp or halfway or really in the beginning of the season. Whatever happens, I think there is just more of a likelihood for Panarin to slightly dip in his point per game production versus a guy like MacKinnon.
Now again, some pretty solid analysis there from Tyler. I do have to agree that I do think MacKinnon will outperform Panarin, but I think both players are going to have awesome seasons. They're both incredibly productive. Obviously, MacKinnon is the more predictable player. I do agree with what he's saying as far as the Rangers lineup, with all the new players that have to fit in, trying to find a spot for Lafreniere, see where Kakko's at in his development. Panarin might have to make some adjustments to try to, do what's best for the team here, whereas MacKinnon, he's going to be that top-line center playing with his regular wingers, and therefore should be continuing to be that dominant force in the NHL. I still think no matter where the Panarin plays in the Rangers lineup, he'll have certainly a major offensive push and make some great offensive contributions. I do expect him to be relatively close in points when we get to the end of the season, but I do think that Nathan MacKinnon will be the top performer amongst these two players and will continue to battle for the Hart Trophy, where it is more likely that Panarin might take a step back here for the coming season, depending on where things go. But you know what? We could prove us wrong as well. If Panarin plays well on his offside and the other younger guys like Kakko and Lafreniere really pick things up, this Rangers team could be entirely an offensive force in that top six, and Panarin could continue to get even better from it. So we will see, but I think I'm going to take the more predictable MacKinnon here, as Tyler mentioned in his segment as well. Now, next up, we're looking at a pair of Toronto Maple Leafs players. We have captain and center iceman John Tavares and the playmaking winger Mitch Marner.
And for the final group we have Mitch Marner and John Tavares. This one is probably the easiest one out of all of them, if you ask me. I'm taking Mitch Marner any day of the week. As good as John Tavares has been, especially since arriving in Toronto as their captain, there's something about Mitch Marner that just takes him to another level. Even at the age of 23, Marner had a career-high season just over a year ago now, in which he racked up, I believe, 94 points, which is already more points than Tavares has ever had in his career. Tavares' career-high season, I'm pretty sure, was that same year in which he had 88 points. So just to give you a balance between the two, I'm picking Mitch Marner really any day of the week. Tavares, he's still been doing well. He has been getting some injuries these past couple of years, was injured for a little bit of the time to start out the season this past year in the 2019-2020 season for the Leafs, versus a guy like Marner, who did deal with some injuries as well, but when healthy is truly amazing. Tavares had 60 points in 63 games this past year, including 26 goals and 34 assists. Marner, on the other hand, 67 points in just 59 games played, including 16 goals and 51 assists. So the goal scorer is definitely more in the favor of a guy like Tavares, as we know, but playmaking ability, passing ability, Mitch Marner is truly up there with the elites in the NHL already, even at the age of 23. So in a shortened season, especially, assuming both can stay healthy in that scenario, I'm really picking Mitch Marner. He's just dominant. He's an amazing skater, has some of the best vision in all the NHL, and is getting better by the day. And I really think he's going to take full advantage of this shortened season and could find himself as the leading point getter in the entire NHL next year, as long as he plays his cards right, stays healthy, and really just thrives in his situation, which kind of seems inevitable at this point should everything go down his right path. So if I had to pick between the two, I'm going with Mitch Marner. But I think that's going to conclude this video. So again, thank you so much, Mike, for having me on the channel. I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts on this as well. I look forward to doing more collabs with you in the future. And as always, guys, if you ended up enjoying this kind of content, make sure to subscribe to Mike if you haven't already. If you haven't, I don't know why. You're crazy. He has some great hockey content here, as we know, far better than mine. And he's done amazing things in such a short period of time. But if you do, in fact, enjoy me and want to see more of my hockey content, please make sure to check me out at WardyNHL, and I'm sure he will have it in the description down below. So again, thank you so much, Mike, for having me on, and thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.
For those of you that have been watching the channel a long time, you'll know I always sign off every video with "I'll catch you next time." So I just found it kind of funny how Tyler ended his segment here with the same catchphrase. Not sure if that was done intentionally or not, but I personally found it quite comical, so we had to throw that in there just to razz him a little bit. But certainly, I'm going to have to agree with Tyler, even though he did take my line in his segment there. Marner is going to be the more productive player over John Tavares. I do think Mitch Marner is likely going to be that playmaking winger again, where Tavares could be, you know, I think he might be starting to slow down a little bit. He's still going to be a really productive player for the Leafs, but we're going to be relying more on Marner. But they will be relying more so on Marner and Matthews to really push the offense. And as this time goes on here with the contract, I think we'll see Tavares have a little bit more of a secondary role, but still going to be a great player for them for sure. There's certainly no harm in having a guy like him, as capable as he is, playing that center position, likely, more of a number 2 spot behind Austin Matthews. Moving forward, pretty good captain as well, but Marner being more of the playmaker, I think will drive more of the offense and end up with more points once we get to the end of the season. So again, thank you very much to Tyler of WardyNHL for coming on the channel. Again, as I mentioned, he is going to have his channel linked down below in the pinned comment. If you haven't checked him out, if you have on previous collaborations here, certainly go to his channel, check him out, some great content, consider subscribing, and of course, as he mentioned as well, if you're new here, consider subscribing to Top Shelf Hockey. We'll keep you covered with all kinds of NHL content when it comes to keeping you up to date on the 2021 NHL season, all the news, rumors, and all kinds of fun collaboration topics to talk about here as well. So thank you very much for watching, everybody, and we will catch you next time.